Hola, buenos días. Para este video vamos a hablar más de los verbos irregulares en el pretérito. We're going to take a further look at some verbs in the preterite that are irregular. Specifically, I'm going to give you 13 verbs that all are quite irregular in the preterite. And I'll tell you about what's good about them, and then you'll see what's kind of annoying about them because they're just difficult to remember at times. So really, this is just an informational video. I'm going to give you the conjugations of 13 verbs. We're not going to do a lot of practice because that would make for a very long video, and I don't want to give you that. So I'm going to break this into two sections. I'm going to give you first 8 verbs in the preterite, and the first group of 8 here I'm going to give to you at the same time because they all have the same endings in the preterite. Their changes are quite different for a lot of them, but their endings are the same. So on the left-hand side of your screen, I'm going to give you the 8 verbs, and then next to them, I will give you the endings for those 8 verbs. So here we go. The verbs are andar, estar, poder, poner, querer, saber, tener, venir. Now these verbs all have an irregular change to their stem in the preterite. The stem is kind of when you take off the ending, the AR, ER, IR, and then you add it. And then what you're left with is the stem. So the stem is irregular, so I'm going to put the stem of these verbs next to the infinitive now. So I'll just tell you what those are really quick in the same order. So it would be for andar, anduv, estuv, pud, pus, quis, sup, tuv, bin. So these verbs all have an irregular stem. Now I'm going to also put up on the screen for you the endings for these verbs. So all of these verbs, these 8 verbs, they have this word change in them, but then they all take the exact same endings. So if you look, so now you see the endings. So the O form of andar, for example, would be anduve. The he/she form of poder would be pudo. The nosotros form of venir would be vinimos, and so on. So these endings go as the same for these 8 verbs. The only thing that's nice about these irregular verbs is that A, they have the same endings, and B, none of them have accent marks on them anywhere in the preterite, which is nice, so you don't have to worry about that. So really what it comes down to is you just have to spend some time studying these irregular verbs so that you can get them down. So just to make sure you get the pronunciation of the endings down, I'm just going to conjugate the verb poder for you in the preterite, give you the pronunciation of it so you understand how the endings are pronounced. Okay, so we have yo pude, pude, tú pudiste, pudiste, ella usted pudo, pudo, nosotros pudimos, pudimos, vosotros pudisteis, pudisteis, ellos, ellas, ustedes pudieron, pudieron. So that's kind of how the endings are conjugated. So really, maybe I'd make some flashcards and just practice these irregular stems so that you can get the endings down. It takes a little bit of time. Okay, so the second set of verbs that we're going to look at, there's 5 more of them. They're quite similar to the last set that I showed you. There's just one difference as far as the endings go, so I'll make sure to point that out to you. So the 5 verbs that we're going to look at now are decir, traer, conducir, producir, traducir. And the stems of these verbs are dich, trach, conduc, produc, traduc. So you'll notice that they're quite irregular, and they're all very similar in that they have that J in there. So hopefully when you, if you remember the stem of it, you'll remember what the one weird thing is about them. So now if we look at the endings of the verbs, you'll notice that they are quite similar to the other ones. There's just one change. And if you haven't seen that yet, the change is in the ellos, ellas, ustedes form. There's no I there. Like in the verb andar, for example, the ellos form was anduvieron. However, for these verbs, it's just E-R-O-N. There's no I there anymore. So, for example, decir would be dijeron. So I'm going to go through the pronunciation of these verbs for you so you know how the endings work. And then it just takes time studying, really. So I'll give you the verb decir, and here we go. Yo dije, dije. Tú dijiste, dijiste. Ella usted dijo, dijo. Nosotros dijimos, dijimos. Vosotros dijisteis, dijisteis. Ellos, ellas, ustedes dijeron, dijeron. Remember, if you're having trouble with the vosotros form of the verb, it's basically the to form of the verb plus is. So if you can know the to form, the vosotros is just plus is on the end of it. There again with the other 8, like the other 8, there are no accent marks on all of these irregular verbs. Really, it just takes time to study these verbs if you want to get them down. There is a video on YouTube that another Spanish teacher made where he sings a song with these irregular verbs in the yo form, I believe. I would look that up. If you're a musical person, it might help you remember them. So if you have any questions about these irregular verbs, let me know and I'll get back to you.